A few years ago, if I was going somewhere new, I'd probably look at a map before I left. Now I put the address into Google Maps and follow the blue line. I don't really learn the route. I don't need to. The same thing happened with phone numbers. I used to know loads of them. Now I barely know any. That doesn't bother me much. I don't particularly want to spend my life memorizing phone numbers. But we're now able to remove effort from things where the effort itself may have been useful. If I need to understand something, I can ask AI. If I need help making a decision, it can give me an answer. So are there some things we shouldn't make quite so easy? For most of human history, getting enough was the problem. Food was harder to get. Information was harder to get. Your choices were much more limited. If you wanted to know something, you might have to find the right book, speak to someone who knew about it, or spend some time working it out yourself. Now we have almost the opposite problem. There's more information than we could ever get through. You can watch something all day without running out of things to watch. You can compare hundreds of products before buying a toaster. You can ask one question and get 20 answers before you've worked out what you think yourself. We've already seen what can happen when something that used to be scarce becomes easy to get. Food is an obvious example. Making calories cheap and widely available solved a very real problem. It also contributed to some new ones. Information can work in a similar way. When it was difficult to get, finding more information was useful. Now there's so much of it that deciding what deserves your attention has become more important. I think convenience needs the same distinction. Some effort is completely pointless. Nobody becomes a better person because they spent 40 minutes on hold to their bank. Typing the same information into 3 different forms isn't doing you any good either. If software can get rid of that stuff, good. Money gives us a good example of the other kind. Paying with cash had a bit of friction built into it. You had to get the money out and physically hand it over. You could see what was disappearing from your wallet. Contactless payments and one-click checkout remove most of that. That's convenient, but it also makes spending incredibly easy. With saving, we often want the opposite. Automatically moving money into savings or a pension is useful precisely because it removes the effort of having to make that decision every month. So removing friction can help us in one situation and work against us in another. Thinking has the same problem. Imagine you've got a moral dilemma. Maybe you found out a friend is cheating on their partner. You know both of them. Do you say something? If you talk it through with another friend, you have to explain what happened. Then you start saying what you think. They might ask why. They might point out something you hadn't considered. You change your mind a bit. Then you change it back. You realize one part of the situation bothers you more than you thought. By the end of the conversation, your friend may not have given you an answer at all, but you formed one. Now imagine starting with ChatGPT instead. You describe the situation and ask, "What should I do?" It gives you a very reasonable answer, and you could just take it. You've got your decision without having to go through much of the process of making one. AI doesn't have to be used like that. You could ask it to challenge your opinion, show you another side, or ask you questions. But it's very easy to just ask for the answer. And if you do that often enough, you get less practice making difficult decisions yourself. Your brain gets better at the things you keep asking it to do. Use navigation for every journey, and you get less practice finding your own way. Look everything up immediately, and you get less practice remembering things. Hand over difficult decisions, and you're doing less of the work involved in forming your own judgment. There's a slightly strange example of this with exercise. We've spent centuries inventing ways to avoid physical effort. Then we drive to a gym so we can run on a treadmill. And given the choice, plenty of people would rather get some of the benefit without doing the exercise. GLP-1 drugs are a good example. They can help people lose weight without having to rely on willpower and exercise alone. Of course, people use them. If there's an easier way to get a result, we're generally going to be interested in it. AI gives us another very powerful shortcut. Sometimes that's exactly what we want. If I need a spreadsheet sorted, I don't need to develop personally from the experience of sorting it myself. But if I'm trying to understand something, learn something, or make an important decision, I don't necessarily want to remove all of the work. I'm still going to use Google Maps. I'm still going to search for things I don't know. And I'm definitely going to use AI. I just don't want my first response to every difficult question to be asking a machine for the answer. So there's a very small change you can try. If something actually requires thought, give yourself 5 minutes before you ask AI. Work out what you think first, then bring AI in. Ask it what you've missed. Ask it to challenge your reasoning. Ask it to show you another way of looking at it. You still get the benefit of the technology. You just make sure you are part of the decision as well.